Hello, everyone at Film Fanatic World. This is Jason Dean at Film Fanatic headquarters. So, this is I've been talking about doing more of these kinds of shows in previous videos where I wanted to do more interview segments. It's been a lot of fun. I love exchanging ideas with people that are involved with film to a degree and getting their perspective. From different from I've had shows where I worked with my friend Sean Russell, who does a lot of film scoring, and that was a really great show. And I learned a lot as far as what that whole kind of world entails. I also did a show way back when with another actress, Lydia Manson, who is also was a or is an actress in the indie horror world, particularly like the real low budget films. So this is another show that I've been excited about doing. This is my great friend Ray. He and we have a pretty cool relationship. We just started working together through music. Music kind of brought us together, giving us been doing a drum lesson thing now probably since like August or so, maybe July of this summer. So it's been pretty new. And we've had a lot of different conversations about various other things. Ray's got an amazing story just in general, and a lot of interesting. He's had a lot of different interesting careers and he's a real extensive background on a lot of different things. And it came up one day where I was talking about this crazy thing that I do called Film Fanatic, and especially with the new thing here with the YouTube channel. So, and I said, yeah, that's one of my hobbies. That's it's grown to be more of a bigger thing for me than just a hobby, but it's always been a passion. And I started this film page, and most of the things that I cover are kind of in the style. I cover all kinds of movies, but I always have the main focus kind of being on horror films, and it's mostly centered on kind of the grindhouse horror exploitation world. That's out of all the styles that I do love, that's the genre or genres that I always gravitate towards, and that's kind of my jam. And Ray had brought up over a conversation that, well, I've worked in that realm, and that sparked a real interest on my part. And then he had given me a list of certain projects and films, and one in particular was called The Farmhouse, and I looked them up, and it was great. It was awesome, and it was like totally in step with a lot of these films that I cover on this channel. So we kind of talked about it more and more, and we thought, like, what about the idea if you wanted to come on the show and be a guest and talk about your experiences with in the indie horror world. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ray.
Hi, folks. How you doing today? I'm doing pretty well. Sitting here with my buddy Jason, just having a nice conversation about some of it's about my experience and what I've been exposed to, which has been limited, of course, but I've been on a few different, if you want to call them low-budget horror movies, and to me, it's been a lot of fun, just getting out there, being creative, learning stuff, and just having a ball with it. I mean, it's really a lot of fun to do. And, you found out, you get connected with different people that you might not have ever connected with.
Exactly.
And that's how I've kind of come along. Even with Jason, I was driving by one day, and, I used to play the drums when I was a kid, and then I started getting into sports. The drumsticks went down, and the footballs went up, and next thing you know, I see this sign up there, drum lessons. I'm like, wow, okay. So I tried calling the number, and the number didn't work. So finally I just
Landline,
stopped
the
by.
old landline.
Yeah, finally I stopped, knocked on the door, and here's this dude, I'm like, hey, can I get some lessons from you? Sure, no problem. So we've kind of started with that, and I even picked up a little drum kit, a nice Ludwig.
Yeah, you lucked
set.
out. You really lucked out with that drum set. It's a beautiful, beautiful kit because when we started with our lessons, Ray didn't really have access to a regular drum set, so he was like looking around, and then I had come across a couple of people and parties that were selling drums, and they were didn't really work out. But then you came across this one drum set, and I remember you sent me a picture of it, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy mackerel, like that's good for any level or any caliber of a player, and really lucked out with that. So
Yeah.
it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a Ludwig pocket set. It's a little smaller version. Could be used for child or beginner drummer, kind of like what I consider myself
Right.
as. So it's good to get on and just kind of start trying to learn some things and some basics, and gotta practice, 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 man. It's kind
And
of what it's
getting
doing
back
now.
to like when that's one thing I find for me personally where I've established pretty good friendships with people over the years is the commonality of an interest in film, and then also with music, music related things. Like you know like my friend Sean, who I mentioned I had on the show, like we met at music school, and it was a common interest. He was really into film and knew a lot more, had a even bigger exposure to film than I did. So, and also with music, so that was our. But I had a real quench to learn a lot of new things, and still do. So that was what brought us together, and then I had a friend, also my friend Emmett Layler, who actually I did a show with, who I play in a band with, and we've been friends for a while. But one day when we started talking about film, I didn't realize how hardcore of a horror fan he is, and that was like, I remember we talked about that in the video. That was like a bonding moment, and ever since then we've you know got closer. So that's always a cool thing, and also that's happened for me for a commonality or an interest in music, a particular genre or a particular band or whatnot. We have that. I meet somebody, we have that in common, and it's that thread. So that's kind of where this whole thing kind of came from. And I remember you said too, like when years and years ago, you used to play drums
Yep.
with a bunch of buddies, and you guys kind of got to a point where you were, playing open mics and maybe I think a few gigs at one point, and then things, life brought about a bunch of changes, and
Yep. Well, this is back around, well, you're probably looking around 2010. And me and my buddy Carl Valois, who actually I met in college, because I went back to college as an adult in '05 to get my
hmm,
bachelor's degree, and I graduated 2010. And I found out that actually I had a very intense interest in history, because I've always loved kind of like Trivial Pursuit stuff. I kind of know a little bit about a lot of things,
definitely that was the impression
but
that I got
like
right when we started
something
chatting.
like that. So I kind of like to stay interested, I guess, in stuff. I'm sort of addicted to excitement that way. You know what I mean? I
Exactly.
like to learn and do new things and keep experiencing life while we get a chance to. So yeah, started doing some open mics. I picked up some percussion instruments, such as I even got a tambourine, and we did some small open mics like in Collinsville,
Hmm.
Connecticut, Bristol, Connecticut, a couple different little venues, even in Farmington and Canton, Connecticut. Again.
Did you find too during that? Was this like in the '80s or
No, this was like around 2010,
2010?
2011, 2012. So it was only, a little over 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Was
But
there? Did you find in that area at that time that there was, I don't know, like a pretty good concentration of other people, like other musicians and people being creative?
there was a number of people that kind of came out to these venues, and whether they be at a bar
Mm-hmm.
or even like a restaurant or something like that. We even played at a flatbread one time.
Hmm.
But
Cool.
a lot of people came out with various backgrounds and various depth in music. Like for me, I just like to give it on. I want to give it on. I want people to enjoy it. Music has always touched my soul, Jason. And at times in my life, it's got me through some different points. Plus, I can give you somewhat of a sound book
Yeah,
of my life, from different,
absolutely.
growing right up through. So I'm like, you know what? I love making people happy like that. And if I can do that and give that to some people, I've done it. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of why I want to do this too as well. But I enjoy playing. I enjoy the physicality of drumming. Um, Definitely, I've been in gyms most of my life too, so I'm more of a physical kind of person. And
Kind of consider yourself like a, I don't know, a gym rat? Is it that a term
I
people
would say, I
sometimes
would
use?
say gym rat, sure.
Right,
And I take that as a compliment.
right.
You know, but I'm also extensively trained. I'm an ACE certified personal trainer for 26, going on 26
Wow,
years now.
I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, and constantly educated myself throughout the years, even before I became certified in 1997, um, about many aspects of fitness, working out, nutrition,
Hmm.
rest. You know, kind of all comes into like a
Is this
balance.
some? Do you still have clients? Like, do you work with as a personal trainer?
Well, I haven't really done much up here in Maine, um, but when I lived in Virginia, I worked at a huge Gold's Gym down there, and
Hmm.
that was really cool because there was a number of people, and I've actually had a number of clients there, and have a stack of testimonials about that high,
Wow, very cool.
and just what I can give to people like that. So, just offer them something, make them feel better, and it's not about all big and lifting muscles and all
Hmm.
bulking up. It's not a matter of that. It's really a matter of quality of life too. I mean, how you want to feel, how do you want to look, how do you want to even mentally, have a outlook on things. So it kind of spills over into all aspects of your life. For me, it has, and also, um, when you go to the gym and work out, a lot of times for me, I was able to work through things, and um, you know, gives you different perspectives, gives you time to think about things, look at things differently, and then you might be able to form
Yeah, all the
another
discipline
opinion.
involved, and it's when I was a kid, I used to do. I haven't done it in many years, but I used to do a lot of martial arts. As a kid, and then before I kind of got into music, and I used to do various forms of martial arts for a long time, and I did it up until about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. But over time, like I started, and then eventually I got into music. But I started seeing, oh, like there's so many similarities, the correlation with the styles, with like the discipline involved and the application, and the kind of the healthy outlet that provides, and like you were saying about trying to make spread or get put people in a space of where it's about their well being, and that's there's so much commonality between those two different things. Even though they're different, but the physicality and the aspects of it that involve discipline and having like that healthy outlet is pretty awesome.
That's a good way to put it. Healthy outlet. You know, Instead of doing all things that are self-destructive, you can do things that are more constructive for yourself.
Exactly.
And like I said, there's such a spillover in your life. Normally, it's more of a positive
Hmm.
atmosphere. You're around more positive people, and life's too short not to be. With everything going on, there's the world or whatever. You got to always try to find. There's always positive out of something. It's when one door closes, the other one opens, and this and that.
That's something my mom was. That's her thing. She always says that, and
Yep.
I'm not necessarily one to believe in like karma per se, but or those kinds of things like a preset destiny. But there's a lot of truth to it too, and she's always said that ever since I was a kid, and it seems to always kind of happen in a lot of ways.
It
So
does. It
very
really
cool.
does. And it's kind of like it's almost basic stuff too, man. You follow the golden rule, you know. Treat others as you want to be treated. It's almost simplistic in a way.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
you know, it's like I said, for me, there's been a lot of spillover, I guess. So I know I use that term almost redundantly, but it's spillover. You know, it spills over into your life. I mean, you know, I've always been kind of a positive person anyway. Even when I was a kid, my parents used to tell me, you know, I was kind of a happy-go-lucky kid and this and that, and you know, so I've always just kind of wanted to have fun and be light on things, and you know, have good time. You know, good times. I'm all about good times. You know, and that's why for me, learning to play in a band and to play all different kinds of music, not just rock. I mean, I'm kind of a classical rock kind of guy.
We both have a huge love for the Beatles. That was one band that we talked about initially in Ringo Starr, and you've seen. I
Yep,
remember you said
I've seen him
seen him
four
play a bunch
times.
of times. You got to meet him,
No, I didn't mean Ringo Starr. I did shake hands with Charlie Watts once,
Charlie
though,
Watts.
of the Rolling Stones. My brother and I. My brother had front row tickets, Hartford Civic Center, and that was really cool. So I did get to shake hands with Charlie Watts and Keith Richards.
Yeah, that's not too
So
shabby.
no, that was cool. You know, just a quick handshake. Um, but you know, I mean, and then when you see that and you see how much fun they're having, you know, it's like, you know, come on, man. That's where I want to be. I mean, I can't be at that level, but I want to be able to give that to people. You know, let people enjoy, forget about things for a little while, dance. You know, hold your partner, have fun, dance with your partner.
Yeah, I
Dance
think
with,
I might have mentioned this a while ago, but like with this the crazy times we're living in, and with going through the pandemic, and it's something we're still dealing with, and it's gotten thankfully easier and better. But going through all of that, there was a whole time where people were kind of reflecting on maybe different priorities in their life, and things where there was a common thing or a thread that I would always hear about where people, well, especially during the lockdown period where people were couldn't really do anything, and especially musicians, you know people were talking about, well, like now I have the time to read that book that I've always wanted to read, or I can watch that movie I've always wanted to watch, or go to the beach, and or spend more time with my family, maybe things that people were taking for granted. And it's as far as for me, like the way I think about that, like there's a lot of times where and I think it's a normal thing where you're like questioning the things you do, and why, and on some levels, like you go through a period where you're like really excited about what you're doing, and you're pumped, and you have good feedback, particularly like with some of the music things that I do and things like this, like where they're more original based, and you go through those periods where you're like really excited, and then you're other days where you're like, I don't really know why, like what the hell am I thinking, like I can't, like this is crazy, like why am I doing this, is this like some kind of joke? And I would always go back and forth with that a lot. But I remember I had an experience once with somebody that I didn't know. I know him more now, but I didn't know him so well. But it was a few years ago, and it was this guy that used to come out to our gigs about a few years ago. It was before the pandemic, and he used to come out to our gigs, and I knew him just as a just from briefly talking with him at these various places that we were playing. And he was always came across really, really nice, but I didn't see him for a few months, and then he came to one of our gigs, and he just kind of told me that he was going through this really tough time, and he was going through a divorce. And he had two little kids, and it was a really, really tough time. And he said that coming out to see our music and going and having that experience was kind of one of the things that gave him a lot of solace and happiness. And he after and while he went through this experience, and he was still going through it, he tried to go out more and to go see live music for that kind of collective experience, where you're hopefully like getting away from the mundane situation. And and I remember we talked about that, and that was like a real moving experience. And he said that that was like really for him the biggest motivator to kind of pull through. And so a lot of the times I think when I'm questioning things, which I've learned to accept are probably a good thing, because you're always critical. You never stop learning, and you need to always kind of figure out some new things. But I always look back at that situation as being something that's like, oh, okay, this is another reason or motivating factor as to why I'm doing this. Like kind of like you were talking about your experience as a personal trainer, or where you I don't know, paying it forward to a degree, but then there's that commonality of that human experience of where your everyday person, you want them to maybe have well-being, and that's what the arts and all of those things hopefully entail. So
Well, there's a lot to it, like being a personal trainer is not just, okay, you have a client come in and you train them here and then they leave and you get paid. There, to me, there's so much more because you're building a relationship, and one of the main pillars, of course, of most relationships to be successful is trust. And so,
absolutely.
they're putting their physical well-being, call it even mental well-being in a way, in your hands. So, how you handle that is vital. And you have to be so in contact and in tune with your clients in that aspect. And I want clients, when we're done training, they're going to learn, and I want to keep them learning every time. So basically, I'm teaching them not to keep them, but I'm teaching them that when we're not together, to follow some things on their own, even at home, even just lifting in the right manners, using the right mechanisms, keeping an eye on your body posturing, where you're at, how you're doing things, just being a little cognitive of yourself.
Absolutely.
And like I said, it does spill over. And like I said, for me, music, and I know I'm going back to music and crossing that with this, it's kind of that same type of feeling, I mean, when I'm working one-on-one with people, Jason, I can really contact with
Right.
them, and they're trusting me because I know what I'm talking about. That's like my realm. Music, to me, is like your realm. I kind of see you, and I come in, and I'm just plopping around like I don't know what I'm doing, and you kind of take that sort of energy that I have, and you're trying to get me to focus and learn on it. And then that's really cool. Otherwise, if we didn't hit it like that, I wouldn't be here now. Because you got to be able to have a relationship with someone, especially like this, one-on-one. It's got to work.
Yeah, it's really I mean, getting back to the band dynamic, it's really it's kind of and I think in that context, it's a little bit like a marriage. Like there's that you have to have, in order for those things to work, there has to be the personalities will have to get along, and there has to be that kind of openness and respect, and able to providing a space where people can share ideas. It has to be kind of like a true democracy to a degree. So I think I look at that as really every not just in a band setting, but relationships in general. Like there has to be a balance of those things, and it has to be a little bit of honesty, and person has to be trustworthy, both parties, or all the parties involved. And so I know, like way back when, or it's not that long ago, like a month ago or so, when this kind of idea I had in my head this idea popped in my head about doing a show with you for about around the film aspect and experience that you had. I remember when I told you about Film Fanatic and some of the things I'm doing, and that it's a deep passion of mine, and then the stuff, the whole music thing that I do with my electronic group Quantum, like that is very much inspired. Probably the majority of inspiration for that project is all taken from film. Whether it's editing films, the cinematography, even the pacing of scripts, to like the theatrical element, the whole aesthetic, all that stuff is like a real influence. So it's grown to be even more. My love of film and everything has grown even more over the years. And I remember you mentioned it. Oh yeah, with all these other things that you've done, like I didn't know about the whole personal trainer thing. Like that's just wild and super cool. And then you were talking about, yeah, well, I've worked on some films, and I've had some experience working in the indie horror world. And then you gave me a list, and one of the films I remember watching was The Farmhouse, and it reminded me so much of this film that I just saw recently called Suburban Sasquatch, which is like I kind of look at it as like a modern day kind of grindhouse horror film, and basically, and it's the Suburban Sasquatch is part of this other kind of subgenre in horror where the filmmakers shoot everything on video purposely,
Yep.
and then it's transferred to to a digital format.
Right.
But it has all of those like classic tropes of like where the effects are kind of horrible, the acting is kind of bad. It's super low budget, but there's like a lot of love put into it.
Yeah, I'm a good actor, though.
And it's just like a great kind of party movie, but just a great like pure form of escapism. And I was like, this movie, Farmhouse, reminded me so much of that kind of thing or that aesthetic, and I was just like, this would be an awesome thing. So I don't know if you want to, with all these other things you had going on or that you have going on.
Yep.
How did you like kind of fall into that area?
One time actually, way back in high school, they did these voting party things, you know what I mean? So I was actually asked to play the Fonz, because I guess in a way I kind of might have been like the Fonzie
Yep.
in high school way back in the 70s. And so they asked me to do this little skit thing.
Like a school play kind of a
Well, it was just
thing?
a short skit in front of the school, actually.
Okay. Cool.
And I dressed up for it. I slicked my hair back,
Huh.
and you could tell I really slicked it back.
Yeah.
Anyway, I slicked my hair back, I had a black leather jacket, jeans, cuffed up, white socks, played the kind of 50s Fonz thing. And we did this little skit thing, hey, I'm the Fonz, vote for these people. And there were some other kids involved. And the very next day, actually walking in the hallway, now the halls are packed with students and teachers, we're exchanging classrooms. And this one teacher actually stopped me, a woman teacher, I forgot, I don't even know who it was, I didn't have her. She just stopped me and said, hey, I saw you yesterday, and have you ever considered acting? And I said, no. And she says, you should. I'm like, okay. Well, I played football. I was a pretty good football player at the time. And, now football isn't acting, but you're kind of on a stage in a way. And I always
Kind of the performance aspect, definitely.
Yeah. And, I always loved that game nights, and putting on, the uniform and, the pants and the shirts and things, the way they fit. And it was different than just being a practice, because you're kind of on the stage. And now here it is, all that practice. Now what are you going to do with it? And
Absolutely.
luckily I had great coaches. And, they taught us, like, you're going to play like you practice. And that's kind of how it goes. So, and we did pretty well. But anyway, fast forward, I'm a personal trainer now, about 2001, and I see this sign in a window in the gym. It said open auditions. I'm like, oh yeah, open auditions. oh, I gotta try that out. So actually, I went for the audition, and there were some filmmakers, young filmmakers, just got out of Emerson College, and they were making their first film.
Was it? Do you remember what kind of genre it was, or was it a horror
Well,
movie?
it
Or?
was called, the name of the film was called Standing Up. It was only a short film, about 18 minutes, 18,
Very
19
cool.
minutes. And I didn't know what bar or whatever, but I did this reading. And I ended up playing the drunken, abusive boyfriend of this kid's mom. It was kind of like about this kid kind of growing up. You know, he was a 16-year-old kid, and parents were divorced. And it was kind of about him kind of standing up for himself now. So it turned out like a pretty good film called Standing Up. And it even played at the Boston Film Festival.
Wow.
Anyway, from there, I went into another film that the same person, this guy Taylor Toole, lived on Martha's Vineyard. He went to California, worked on some series like Deadwood and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
And
Do
they
you know
told
what kind of work did he like what capacity did he work on Deadwood?
Well, I know he was in the production crew.
Very cool.
So I'm not exactly sure what his title was. But, and they told him if you want to make a really film, you need to do a feature length.
Right, right.
So he wrote this film, and the funny thing was he called me up one day, about '05, and said, I wrote this film, and I wrote you right into the film, your part. And you
Wow.
don't even have to audition because
So you kind of wrote it with you in mind.
he did. He wrote it
That's
with
so
me in
cool.
mind. He even named the character Ray, which
Huh.
is my name, of course.
That's awesome.
And so he wrote this film called Black Eyed Girl, which was pretty cool. And we filmed it on the Vineyard, filmed it in Boston, for locations like that. And it was a pretty good film, actually. It was like over an hour. And I mean, I thought it came out pretty good. Black Eyed Girl by Taylor Toole. I think it's Toole Productions, maybe, something like that.
So that was like your kind of your first like experience like with like more of a more or less a full length kind of feature,
Being on the set.
being on a regular full set.
The first film, he said he liked me to be in the second one too because I was such a positive influence on the set. Positive
Absolutely.
vibe that I gave out.
Yep, I could totally see that. Yep.
Yeah. And you know, and I used to say, and I still do, I said, in order to be professional, you gotta be professional. And that was it. So I went into it like that. But when I was doing the second film, I met one of the actors, Jim Ford. And he was going to be going to New York City to make it in acting. And he's done numerous different projects in acting and a host of them. But he said he knew this guy that was going to be doing a film that I might be interested in. Rakeem JH Lawrence in Harlem, and he's doing a horror film. So I called him up, went down to Harlem, and met Rakeem JH, who goes by Jay. I met Jay, and we talked, and I did a short audition, and boom, I got the part.
So you did like a impromptu audition the same time you met him. Huh.
Yep, exactly. And
Did he kind of ask you to read through some dialogue or just kind of improvise, like an improvised thing?
Yeah,
Huh.
they asked me to read through a couple things, and I did, and then I got the part. So then I had to go back down
Very
to
cool.
Harlem to start filming. It's called The Great, and that's on Scared Stiff Films, which you might even be able to pick it up on YouTube. Anyway, and so his other company also, which is the one that I showed you, introduced you to the film The Farmhouse.
Yeah, that was the one I watched that
Yep.
spurred on this idea of getting you on the show.
Yeah, and that's VHS horror films. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was
That was a
great.
lot of fun doing because when we did The Great, really got into it again.
Was
you
that
know,
also like a horror film?
It
too?
is. Yep.
Great.
Yep. The Great. And I actually got the crew to come out to Connecticut from New York City, and we filmed there and did some filming, and it was really cool. And then even had a couple of my friends get into it. So,
Very cool.
and then the farmhouse, I got more extensively into it, like location. You know, I found a location, some actors, some production stuff, and as well as acted in it.
So you actually like that was one of your jobs was to help out,
Location,
find
yeah.
locations and get other actors involved. Very
That's
cool.
right,
Huh.
exactly. And as well as acting in it, which I like doing. Because to me, acting was just, it was a fun thing to do again. You know, just, there's no limits or boundaries to creativity. Creativity is, it's open, it's there.
Absolutely.
It's what you want it. You know, so, um, you know, I had a ball doing that stuff. You know, I had a ball going over scripts, reading, practicing, you know your lines. That's one of the main things with acting. Know your lines. And, you know, we just had a lot of fun. And then you produce a halfway decent product. So it was pretty cool stuff. And I know that Jay's done numerous other projects, some other films. Actually, one of them is
I was just gonna say you brought
The
over
Date.
a couple of his films.
Yep, one of them's The Date. And, you know, it's another one out. Pretty cool stuff. There's the back.
Yeah, it looks.
You know, it's
I
pretty
can't wait to
cool.
watch it. It looks amazing.
Yep, got a little glare going there. Anyway, probably off my head. But, so, you know, and he's just, I'll tell you what, Jay, if you want to know anything about any horror films at all, you ask Jay. He can tell you anything, man. I tell you what, he knows all films. He's been so into it. It's like his life.
Well,
And he's done a great job.
actually, like today, he actually called you today,
Yep.
and you had told me about Jay, and he'd worked on the Farmhouse and these other movies, and like that his career is like really getting it's pretty huge right now, and he's starting to really emerge as like a name, and he actually called you today, and then I talked with him for a while, and
Yep.
it was cool. And then I was telling him about this whole crazy idea that we were going to do today, and that I would definitely get him involved and do some tag him in this whole thing and
Yeah,
put in a
absolutely.
good word.
Absolutely.
And but I remember he said you know and I said, well, like the thing that I kind of do most of the time with my channel, again, I cover lots of different things, but I tend to focus on the films from like this late or 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that's like my favorite period of filmmaking for all like the sleazy horror exploitation movies that came out. And I remember that's one thing we talked. Yeah, exactly. That was one of the things we just briefly he mentioned. He's like, yeah, that's my jam. Like 70s and 80s. Like he's all about the old school stuff. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is great. So yeah, and I remember when I watched the Farmhouse, it had there was a bunch of, I believe, like these trailers that were like these mock kind of exploitation trailers
Yeah.
that were included, and I was just like, this is awesome. Like this is totally harkens back to that period. So and did you guys collaborate further after the Farmhouse, or is there still like maybe some things you might get around to doing?
Absolutely. You know, we haven't, we've stayed in contact, luckily. And we've formed a relationship, and we stayed in contact. I know that him and his woman are getting ready to have another child. I know that, and he's pretty happy about that as well. And I'm happy for him. All right, Jay.
Yeah, very cool.
And yeah, and I know, like I said, he's been extremely busy as far as filming, because he basically does everything. You know, he writes, He writes, films, produces, directs, a little bit of acting, but he's more behind the camera. And but he does it all. Editing, great editor, puts
That's
in a lot
amazing.
of effects, which he even did with our films.
So like this movie here, or the movies that you brought, the date, like that was something that
Yeah,
he pretty much had control over the whole.
he did the whole thing. Wrote, produced,
Wow.
directed it, filmed it. I mean, he does it all, soup to nuts. He's like the chief bottle washer. You know what I mean?
Huh.
So he's like, but he does it all, and he knows, like I said, his knowledge base is phenomenal.
That was like one of the things. Like I have a little bit. I've talked about it in other videos, but I have like a little bit of experience in film myself. Like years ago, I used to play in this kind of weird little art indie rock band, and we were very much like into like bands like Sonic Youth and inspired by bands like Velvet Underground and the work that they did with Andy Warhol at the factory and we used to I had this thing of where I was like shooting these music videos and we basically took that idea from the factory days with Andy Warhol where the Velvet Underground would have these like images and movies like projected on them while they were performing and it always kind of created this cool kind of art house vibe and so I did that for a while with a band many years ago and we did these videos and we did I don't know maybe like 10 shows where we would have a you know everything set up with a screen and we have the stuff projected on us and then years and years later I had this idea of like directing my own movie and I did direct this movie and it's kind of a piece of crap I never show anybody because it's pretty hard.
Oh, come on.
But I directed this movie called Rapture. It's a short little vampire movie, and I did have a showing. I did have a premiere of it once in town in Belfast at this really cool gallery. And but it was such a fun experience, but it was so challenging because and the thing that I took away from it the most. It was a 20-minute film, and I directed it. I kind of edited it with my friend Vince, who I'd done the project with, and I financed it myself, and I put together this troupe of actors that did it, found the locations and did all that stuff, but as hard as it was, and it did cost quite a bit of money to just do like a 20-minute movie. And as bad as it is, it gave me a newfound respect for filmmakers and admiration and how commendable it is because, like you said, with Jay, when you have somebody, I feel like films are almost the hardest art form that there is because you're as a director or somebody who's creating something. You're wearing like all of these hats all at once. You're worrying about the cinematography, the scoring of the film, the editing, the marketing, the effects, the light. I mean, just there's so many facets of it. The caliber of the actor that you get, and you have to like kind of. What I found is you have to multitask on a high level continually. You're not just worrying about one or two things. So when you were explaining that he has that kind of control and does all those things, like that's
Yep.
pretty amazing, and that he's got an actual like body of work and he's successful. Like that's pretty awesome.
Yep. Yep. I mean, and he's driven. I mean, that's the thing too. He's focused. He's driven. And I mean, to me, if you want something bad enough, you're gonna go and do what you got to do to get it.
Absolutely, yeah. No
And
matter what.
that's just the way it goes, and with everything in life too. But yeah, he's a great guy and open to suggestions as well. And like I said, we formed a relationship that became friends too. So we can bounce things off. He'll listen to me, and then I'll take things from him, and maybe add something to a scene, or
That was one
think,
of the things
maybe
that
this or that. It might not work.
when I talked with him on the phone for those few minutes, that was one of the things he said about you, or how he referred to you, was like you're his to go to guy. Like bouncing ideas, or to something comes up, he'll like run it past you or talk with you. And I was like first, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm no expert, but I can tell you this. I think I have a little bit of my finger on the pulse. You know what I mean? So, it's kind of like what kind of product do you want to put out?
Hmm.
I mean, do you want to do a shitty product? Do you want to do a good one? I like to do a good one.
Right.
And, whether it's good, if in some people this and that, it's all in people's opinion. And I'm not worried about trying to please this or that. I'm just doing what we do. And then you put it out. Some people like it, some people don't. Hey, doesn't bother me what.
Did you guys have like a I don't know, a formal like release, or like a premiere of the farmhouse?
Not the farmhouse itself, but the crate we did.
Huh.
We
Right.
had this. There was this theater down in downtown Manhattan. I forget the name of it.
Wow.
It wasn't
Super cool.
far from the old CBGBs either. 'Cause
Wow.
we went by there. But anyway, yeah, I played the mayor in the town. That was my role. I was the mayor, and because the crate was pretty cool.
And you said that's available
It should be on
to the public.
Scared Stiff Films,
Hmm.
and might even catch it right on YouTube. Or Rakeem JH Lawrence. He has also VHS horror films. Look that up. Because there's different. When I say the farmhouse, there's a few different farmhouse movies, so you got to get the right one.
Right. That
So
took me when I went. And you gave me a list of some things
yeah,
that took me a little while, and then I found I was like, and I remember I was going through it because it was there was like I said that when I was watching it, there were these like kind of mockumentary or mock up kind of trailers, like these old kind of grindhouse trailers that were done in a modern light, but they were made to look like that. And I remember going through it, I was like, oh, that's not Ray. And I went through it, and then I came to this one scene where it got to the movie, and I saw you, and I was like, that's it. And I was like, this is the right one, because it did take me a while to find it, but it was pretty funny. But instantly I knew it was you. I was like, oh, this is it. Okay,
yep,
cool.
yeah. So I mean, like I said, for me, it was just a lot of fun. I love doing that stuff, and take shot at the mundane, everyday things of life too. Like for me, acting. I like acting, and be in front of the camera, and you get to pretend, you get to be somebody else.
Mm. Yeah, the
You
land
know,
of make believe.
and
Yep.
then for that person though, you develop that person. It's like you birth this kind of person. You know what I mean? And you create them. You gotta be. Yeah, you got your look and all that. Like I look this way, but um, but then again, now you got to create this person. It could be a totally different personality, different attitudes, the way that you look at things, speak, talk, move. There's a lot about acting.
Were there, like, since you kind of did this without any, I guess, formal training, which I think is even better. One of my favorite directors. I just did a show. One of my favorite directors of all time is Herschel Gordon Lewis, and he was, kind of looked at as, one of the greatest kind of exploitation directors, and he he was notorious. Like, obviously, like taste. It's a matter of opinion and stuff. And I know like his work isn't like considered to be like highbrow art or anything, or highbrow filmmaking, and that's fine. But there's such a for me, I love his work because there's just such a sense of fun, and it's real pulpy, and it's got this kind of sleazy thing to it, and it's super low budget. But Herschel Gordon Lewis, like I did a show on his movie Blood Feast, which was like kind of looked at the movie that ushered in the first, more or less the first movie that had gore on in 1963. But one of the craziest things about him, which I think is just wacky and just amazing, he was known for literally like when he was like in, when he was at a location and they're filming, he would just randomly pick people off the street sometimes and throw them in the movie.
Right.
And they had no experience at all. He would be like, okay, you over there, come over here, and here's 2 lines of dialogue. Read this. Okay, we'll do 2 takes. Okay, got it. And then put it in the freaking movie. Like there's a scene in Blood Feast where at the end they're chasing like the killer, and he runs to where there's like this like a dumped or garbage truck, and there's these 2 guys that come out, and the killer eventually gets like thrown in he dies and he gets thrown in this garbage truck and he gets mashed up, and it's hilarious. But the 2 guys that are in the truck see him and they come out and they grab him. And from what I read about that movie was with like they were filming that day and he saw these guys in a garbage truck and he's like, okay, can you guys use this truck? Can you guys be in this movie? And they
Right.
actually are real garbage men in the movie.
Right.
Who had no experience. And it's just amazing. Like it's so ridiculous. But
That's cool.
so I did when you're describing like that you're just you're passionate about it and you want to learn something new and you just kind of throw yourself into it. Is that kind of like what your perspective is, or
Yeah,
what is your
mean,
perspective?
Well, that's it. I think passion is the word. I wanted to do it, and then I've always, whenever I've done something in my life, I always want to do a good job at it anyway. So, and I wanted to be good. I wanted to do like this good product too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had fun because it was something I've always wanted to do.
Right.
So I had the opportunity and created the opportunity too. Sometimes you got to create your own opportunities. So I kind of went into it enthusiastic and with excitement. And I got rules.
Yeah, that's all
way.
you need. Yeah. So
You got rules that way. So it was pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. And if you ever get a chance, sometimes you just got to chase those dreams, man. You dream. If you want to make that dream come true, you got to chase them sometimes.
Right.
Some you might not get, but you might get a little taste of one, or you might have it all come true. I've had many dreams come true in my life. I've been very, very fortunate. So you got to chase them. Chase those dreams and go for it. It'll
Absolutely.
happen.
Absolutely.
It will happen.
Thanks again, Ray. We're just closing in about an hour. Really appreciate you being on the show. It's
No
been a
problem.
total blast. Can't
Yeah,
wait
definitely.
to share this with everyone. So stay tuned for some more shows, couple more interviews. My great friend Ray here. So thanks again for your support here on Film Fanatic. If you get a chance, please like and subscribe to my channel, and to help support this wacky thing that I do. So thanks again, and thanks to Ray.
You'll be seeing me drumming sometime. I'll be
Indeed.
there. This guy's teaching me. He's the best right here. So this guy's like a professional.
I still owe you $35 for saying that, or 50 for that. But
I don't think so.
Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Ciao.